You made it to the last mini lesson, and this one has a lot of bullet points because it is kind of a very fast encapsulation of all of the fundraising knowledge that I particularly think is important that has to do with being a good fundraiser and being a really good steward with the funds that you raise. Steward is kind of a funky fundraising term that essentially means that you are guarding and making sure that you're spending the funds wisely, that you're not just throwing money into everything, that it's really actually going towards what's going to make an impact. So when I say steward, it means that you would say, I'm being a good steward of the funds that we've raised. The number one thing in fundraising, it will never get old. You can never say it too much. Say thank you all the time, repetitively. And you want to say it to one person, and that is a key part of saying thank you. You can send a mass email that says, great job, everyone. There was $500 raised, but do not say, we raised $500. Do not say, you all raised $500. Say, you raised $500, because people want to know that they are doing something impactful. They don't care if you did it. They don't care that we did it. It's a great idea that there's like a collective whole, and that's all like, rosy-eyed glasses, but the reality is people will listen and pay attention more when you're talking to them directly. So anytime that you are writing a Facebook post, that you are sending an email, that you're sending a text, you are talking to one person when you're thanking them, okay? So keep that in mind. It's going to greatly impact how people respond to all of your communication. Right at a 6th grade level. This is really difficult because a lot of times, especially if you are a highly educated person, it can be so tempting to use really big words like steward. But I would not tell a donor, don't worry, I'm being a good steward. I would say, your gift made an impact. Because they don't care that I'm being a good steward. They want to know that they're making a big impact. It's kind of just rule of thumb that you write at a 6th grade reading level. There's actually a tool on Microsoft Word that you can go in, and it's in the word count, and you can check like what is the grade level that you're writing at. And it will tell you if you're, higher than a 6th grader or if you're writing at a 2nd grade level. But essentially what you're gonna do is you wanna make sure that your sentences are short, that you're not using super big words, and you can actually break some grammatical rules. Like you can start sentences with and or by, things like that. Essentially dulling down the communication a little bit, because when people are reading fast, and again, as we talked about, they're getting so much information every single day that the more simple that your communication is, the more they're going to be able to internalize it and remember it. And if you're sending these massive emails, they're probably not going to read it all. And then they're probably not going to get involved, and they're probably not going to care. Be concise, be brief. Capitalize on your school breaks. So if you are in a PTA, it is very likely that you have done some sort of restaurant or activity fundraiser, whether that's like a trampoline park or a Chuck E. Cheese or a bowling alley, whatever it might be. But capitalize on your breaks, because a lot of times there are parents, especially on the weird breaks like Midwinter Break or a fall break, where it's not necessarily a super big holiday time, where parents are like, what am I gonna do with these kids? Maybe schedule one of those fundraisers for a day or an evening that week where they can go, take the kids for something to do, see their friends that maybe they haven't seen in a week, and not only that, but you get a cut of those funds. So consider that. Maybe don't do multiple every single day of that week, but maybe 2, or if you find that you're really successful in those, maybe 3. So don't overdo it, but capitalize on those breaks. Give the people what they want. Give them what they want. And when I say that, a lot of people just want to be able to give cash. They don't necessarily want to buy a coupon book. They don't want to buy popcorn. And those items work, but it's more out of obligation than it is their desire to obtain that thing. The areas that I've seen that people actually really want to pay money in order to give you a cut of the funds, one of them that I found to be really successful was branded candles during the holiday season. So we had Christmassy holiday scented candles, and they had a school logo on them, and we sold those. And so those were a really fun Christmas gift. There's also a fundraiser called Art to Remember. Maybe you've heard of it, where the students will draw artwork. You coordinate with teachers, they send in the artwork, and then parents can go ahead and families can go ahead and buy different items with the artwork that the kids have drawn, their specific kid or student that they've drawn, and then they get a cut of that. So try to think outside of the box, other than the local coupon selling, then the popcorn, then the coffee, all of that stuff. Because if it's not really interesting, if it's not really meaningful, then you're gonna get just obligated people. And honestly, there's no harm in saying, hey, we're just looking for donations. Would you be willing to give? That's not a hard thing to do. And a lot of people are willing to do that, as long as they know that there's, what's the root cause of me giving my money. Watch for fund fatigue. You don't want to do too many fundraisers. A lot of district bylaws will actually have rules about how many fundraisers you can do in a certain amount of time, or during 1 week. You don't want to have so many things going on that people can't focus on one. You can send good, numerous communication about one thing, but you don't want constantly to be sending out new items, because people won't be able to process that, and it's all just kind of go over their head. So just make sure that what you are choosing to do isn't necessarily too overwhelming for people, and that you're making the asks compelling. Be a good steward and report back on what you've been doing and the impact it's had. So again, being a good steward is you're taking care of those funds. You're not being stingy with them. You're not sitting on this money for years, which I have seen happen. You are actively finding ways to support the school, to support the teachers and staff, to make sure that that educational environment is fantastic for the students that are there. And then you're reporting back to the donors, which are the families and the parents or the businesses or the sponsors, whoever it is. You are reporting back. That is something that so many people do not do, and it is going to hurt you in the long run. You have to report back. So much so that brings me into my next recommendation. If you are not a 501c3, it's something to consider. It gives you independence. It allows you to make your own decisions about the funds that you have. A lot of times, if you share a bank account with the school or the district or something like that, they can put limitations on what you're allowed to actually spend the money on. For instance, I talked with a PTA where they weren't allowed to buy any type of food or appreciation type items for the teachers or staff, because all of their money was tied up in an account with the district, and everything that the district bank account money was spent on had to be designated for educational purposes only. You don't want to be pigeonholed like that. You want to be able to make your own decisions and serve teachers and staff where they need to be served. Becoming a 501c3 isn't terribly difficult. You do have to file an annual report at the end of the year, typically with your state, and you do have to file with the IRS, but as long as you're documenting and tracking, then you should be perfectly fine, and your treasurer should be able to do that. Having a prettier annual report is something I'm a huge fan of. I don't think most PTAs do this, but they should, because there's a ton of money that is given throughout the year by parents who care about what their kids are doing. When you can kind of package it into a nice document, whether that's like a trifold brochure or even a one-pager of like, here's the big things that we did, I usually include a summary of how much money we raised and how much money we spent. And then you can even include how much money is in your savings, if you have any, just to give parents an idea of like, here's where the PTA is with all of the money that they've raised and spent, and here's what they did with it. So they feel confident, okay, my dollar is going directly to benefit my students' educational experience, because you don't want people to think, oh, they're just throwing it out into the wind and I have no idea where my dollar is going. You also don't want them to think, oh, they're just going to sit on that money, and then by the time my kid's out of elementary school, it's not even going to go to help their teacher or their school experience. So those are really the big things. I flew through those pretty quickly, but just keep those in mind as you fundraise, make them a priority, and you should be good to go.